Well, Dalia Fahmy is the Director of International Relations and an Associate Professor of Political Science at Long Island University. She joins me now from Princeton in New Jersey. Good to have you on TRT World. How do you think this truce is going to impact that important aid that really needs to get to the people of Gaza right now, especially with the truce looking like it will only really start in the next 48 hours or so?
So, according to United Nations, terms like ceasefire and truce are actually very different than what's happening today. This is called a humanitarian pause, and a humanitarian pause is a select cessation of hostilities in certain areas and in certain neighborhoods. And so that is what we're talking about. It's a humanitarian pause. Now, the details of it are not necessarily clear yet. Now, of the 200 to 300 trucks that are expected to enter to the Red Cross and Red Crescent in Palestine, it's not clear what kind of aid is going to be entering. So, for example, fuel is going to enter, but only for water desalinization, not to hospitals. That there will be some supplies, but limited in nature of what kind of food can enter. And so, even in terms of the number of trucks entering, this is a far cry from what is needed, or compared to what used to enter Gaza before October 7th. Now, what we do know about numbers is that 14,000 people, up to 15,000 people have been killed, a majority of them children, women and children. And with more than 70% of the population of Gaza displaced, both internally and forced to the south, what you're seeing is an extreme level of need, that it's not clear that 4 days of respite in certain areas is going to actually lead to alleviating of enough suffering. Now, the bigger, deeper question is, what happens after 4 days? When, according to both Israeli government and other sources, that the end of hostilities, or this pause, is going to end. And the pause will lead to a reinstatement of the attacks on Gaza and throughout the West Bank. And so what does this pause do for that? What does it do for ending the conflict? We know that the majority of homes, up to 60% of all homes, have been destroyed, and more than half the population is internally displaced. And so what the pause is leading to is that maybe a level of fear will be released, that people can possibly not fear things falling from the sky, but there still will be drones in the sky. There still will be the fear of what would cause a break in this momentary pause, because in the past, these pauses have indeed been violated. And if the hostages are not released, and we know that the agreement has not been yet released to the public, this 10 per day over 4 days, and possibly even extending it if 10 more are released per day, that the fragility of this pause could actually undermine it.
And Dalia, there are, of course, as you are mentioning there, a lot of what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And at the end of the day, all it does is affect the people of Gaza and make their situation even more dire. I'm wondering, though, is this slowing down of aid getting into the enclave, which we've seen, of course, happen over the last 6 weeks, also something that is being used as a weapon of war by Israel against the people in Gaza?
So according to United Nations, prevention of food, electricity, and water is indeed a weapon of war that has been used against the population. And so the fact that Gaza has not been with electricity, that all hospitals, we are now at the capacity where almost all hospitals are non-functioning, where we saw most patients in ICUs die because of lack of electricity, when there is no potable water, when food is not allowed to enter, that this starvation is a slow starvation of this war-torn part of the world. And it violates all UN conventions. It also violates even U.S. understanding of conduct of warfare, according to our own military code. And so, the question is, what is it going to take for the international community to say, even in the moment of warfare, even in this crisis moment, that there are certain non-negotiables, and that these non-negotiables are indeed water, electricity, and food. And what we're going to see trickle into Gaza is nowhere near what is needed.
Yes, it's a question so many have been asking, and yet no answer to that. Dalia Fahmy, appreciate your time and your analysis live there from Princeton, New Jersey.